Hi everyone, my name is Laura Friend, and I want to cover with you some of the things that I learned from our readings. On chapter 1, I believe and I feel that chapter 1 is really a large overview of the Family Life Education program. In looking at chapter 1, I remember reading it from our Family 150 class, which I'm sure we've all taken. And I remember thinking as I read that this really has set the foundation. That chapter sets the foundation for the Family Life Education program and basically sets the foundation of what we're studying here for our major. I wanted to cover some of the things that they talked about in chapter 1, specifically the approaches to family life education. They talked about an expert approach, where it's, basically somebody who is an expert in an area teaches people who do not have very much information about it, and I think this would be more of a classroom type setting. A facilitator approach. Our church encourages this type of teaching a lot, where the person who's been called to teach the class will give the materials and then open up the floor to questions or comments. The critical inquirer approach is used to get participants thinking deeply about lessons. And the collaborator approach is the one I identify with the most. It's one where both the instructor and the student have valuable insights about the material that's being taught. The interventionist approach, and the purpose of that is to enact change in the lives of participants. And the eclectic approach, it incorporates all elements of the other approaches. And I hope to become more eclectic in my approach in the way that I deliver family life education, that I'll be able to implement what's really important and how each different group that I work with and teach responds to those approaches. That if it's more appropriate to be a collaborator, it's more appropriate to get them thinking deeply and be a critical inquirer, or if it's important to have both of those throughout the aspects of the presentation. I hope to get really good at discerning what the best approach would be. Another thing that really struck me was the importance of developing a working philosophy of family life education. One of the things they stressed under this principle is that you need to write down your own philosophies about family life education. And this reminded me of a therapy program that a loved one is enrolled in right now. And this loved one is required to write down every day why they are fighting for change in their lives. It's something that they're constantly reminding themselves about, and they remind themselves through writing it down. So there is power in writing things down, and power in writing down our beliefs and our philosophies about family life education. Part of those beliefs would incorporate our beliefs about families, the purpose of family life education, the content that we're going to be delivering, and the process of learning. And we know the nature of families. This was the first thing that they pointed out in this section. We know that families are divinely appointed, and having that knowledge will affect how we deliver family life education in the future. I feel that the purpose of family life education is to help educate and strengthen families against life's challenges that might otherwise threaten to destroy them. I believe that content that we teach should be scholarly based, because it provides credibility to the program. It ensures that correct principles are being taught, and it also relieves us as educators of the burden of proof, because sound research is really hard to dispute. And I believe the process of learning is best accomplished in a full family group, so that the principles can be incorporated together and everybody is on the same page. That whole family really needs to hear it together for it to be most effective. Chapter 2 focused on designing family life education programs, and this is something that we are beginning to do in our class right now. One of the things they talked about was prevention education models, and they suggested that these should incorporate content, instructional process, implementation process, and evaluation. And so this is the format that we are following in the family relations program. And in this, we will be doing appropriate research. We will be developing sound lesson plans, and we will be striving to meet our participants' needs and then evaluate if the program helped the participants. So we're really following these steps. As we follow those steps, we will be successful in delivering our family relations programs. Chapter 16 focused on marketing, and I've had some interesting experiences with this. I was invited to teach a few workshops at the Portland Regional Music Workshop that they have here annually in the area, and people from all over the region, Northwest region, come to this workshop. And I taught a class on primary music, and then just recently taught one on nursery music. And the marketing, I wasn't involved with that, but it was not very successful for a while until the committee had participants fill out surveys about what classes they wanted. And after doing that, they were able to get more people in because they were tailoring it to what those people wanted. And this is something that we need to do as family life educators. We need to find out what people want and how we can best help them by delivering that material. Something else they talked about was crafting marketing messages to foster change. And in here, they talked of a couple named John and Janet. And they talked about how, oh, we got to convince John and Janet that they need marital education classes before they get married, because both came from families that had histories of divorce. And as I was reading that, I thought about our church has already in place curriculum designed for young men and young women to teach them about all of these things that our readings were trying to point out to John and Janet. The risks that are involved if they don't get the education, consequences for choices, investment in time and effort, benefits versus cost, attitudes about behavior, self-efficacy, adoption of strong value systems, and LDS social norms. Those are all things that we are giving our youth a foundation of, so that as they move through life, they have access to those resources already. And I just thought that was really interesting that the church is already a step ahead, and they don't wait until right before they get married, that they're already working on some of these aspects so that these youth are able to transition into marriage better. Chapter 18 focused on improving family life education practices. And it talked about professionalization, and this reminded me of the blank look I get when I tell people what my major is. And I almost always have to explain what it is and what I'll do with it when I graduate. And this just emphasizes the need that we have to make family life education more professionalized, so that people are, when they hear that, oh, marriage and family studies, oh, okay, so you would be working with communities to deliver family life education, or we need to be better about getting the word out to people. So this led me to the question, how can I be more proactive about my work? And I wanted to follow the suggestions in the readings to educate employers about family life education. I realized that I need to find out company programs in the area for supporting family life education amongst their employees. There's several companies that offer family activity type programs where families come together, and so that family is important to them. And I just made me wonder, how much are they aware of the resources out there? And hopefully I could partner with them and help deliver some family life education to them and their employees. I would like to partner with other family life educators in the area to market and host classes for communities at local schools, for people in the community at the local schools, and also contact legislators about local policies affecting families, and just see if we can enact change that way. I will need to personally be very careful about the audience that I'm addressing, because I live in a very diverse and underserved area, an area where there's a lot of underserved audiences, and there's a lot of ethnical minorities, and also very diverse family arrangements. There's kids at my school who have two moms or two dads in their families, that are married, and so I need to be sensitive about those issues that people in my area are facing. Appendix A discusses several principles. They talk about empathy, and this reminded me of a life therapy session that we viewed in my Family 360 class. In that, a professional therapist, Brother Higgins, showed great empathy for a 17-year-old young man that really helped him connect with his family. And it was a very powerful experience for those who viewed that session of what empathy can do for a person in a family life education setting or a therapy setting. They talked about integrity. I'm just going to touch on a few of these. And I teach this on a daily basis. I often have to remind my kids to keep their word, that if they don't keep their word, they will lose the trust of others. They talked about chaos, and this made me think of Brother Gardner's video from Family 400. He had 4 people put in a large Lycra tube, and so they were bound together basically in this large, like 20-foot circle, and then he had them cross this way and that way so that they were, constantly making this rotation, and then they had them speed up. And of course, it resulted in the end in chaos. And it illustrated that family systems are not perfect, and that there's going to be some chaos, and this is normal, and that's okay. And we need to help people understand that. The last thing I wanted to touch on was legacy. This made me think of Christ's quote. He said, about serving others and losing ourselves in the service of others. He says, whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall save it. And that's the purpose of legacy, is to step outside of ourselves and to look at others and serving others, especially within marriage. And Christ lived by this principle. And I know that as we follow his example as family life educators, that we will be more successful in our efforts to help those around us. Thank you.